This is Rev. Michelle Hopkins. Something spectacular happened over the skies of Russia. But what was it? Was it a meteor? Was it a missile? Was it an EMP? Was it from America? Did the Russians shoot it down as they claimed? What was it? Let's investigate. This is the Pushchino Radio Astronomy Observatory. It is also a space fence very near Moscow. If you see, this has the cross figuration, and as you can see, it is numerous arrays all in a row. This is a space fence configuration, and anything that passed through Russian airspace all the way up into outer space, when they pass through this stream, Russia would automatically know its trajectory, what it was, where it was going, where it came from, who it belonged to, and so on and so forth. Nothing is getting by this bad boy in Russia's airspace. Russia's space fence right there. One of many. Here we have in the Moscow vicinity a laser. This is a very, very powerful laser that can be used for anti-aircraft, anti-meteor. This could have brought down that meteorite. But I don't think it did, because we probably would have been able to see the laser light coming out of it and going to the meteor too. This is very similar to what that laser looked like from the inside. This is the Sura ionospheric heater. It is a facility almost exactly like HAARP. It's near Sura, Russia. This could have taken down the meteor if it had had time to power up. It could have taken it down. I don't think it was powered up and ready. I don't think it was ready to take it down. So I don't think this is what took it down. This is a Tesla howitzer. I believe this, or something like it, is what brought down whatever that was. This is a Tesla howitzer. Okay? What that means is it can use directed energy that can kill on a huge scale. I'm going to try to show you what our Tesla howitzers did in Iraq, in the first Iraq War, in the Gulf War in 2002. Imagine if that was magnified 1,000 times, perhaps more. Perhaps 100,000 times on a ground-based massive installment as a Tesla howitzer. That's what we're dealing with. Here is a basic configuration of a Tesla howitzer. No matter how big it is, no matter how small it is, that's the basic configuration. Okay? This is right here. This basically is the barrel of this gun. This is the main emitter. Around it, it has numerous directional emitters. It has a forward emitter and directional emitters all around it. This has a space fence that also helps with powering up all around the entire installation, because it has to be protected. It is absolutely paramount to Russia that this is protected all the way into outer space. It even has a secondary fence line outside, far outside it, so that it gives it a little bit more time to react if anything does come over its airspace. This is one bad, bad boy. Now let me show you just how close by this Tesla howitzer right here in Kazakhstan is to the Ural Mountains, over which this thing, whatever it was, flew over Russia and was perhaps shot down. Here are the Ural Mountains, very close by to the Tesla howitzer. This is an International Space Station image that spans the entire area from the Ural Mountains to Kazakhstan. And you will notice here that the International Space Station detected a high pressure infrasonic frequency emission all the way from eastern Kazakhstan toward the Ural Mountains. On that day, it came to a halt right here in a circular blast and then dispersed horizontally. Now we're going to watch this as it happens. Before we start the video, I want to point something out. It looks to me like the Russians have been testing on 2/15/2013. This is February 15th, 2013, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rocket trails in the sky. Let me show you what a Russian missile launch looks like. He's opening up the launch doors. He just ejected the missile. This is a nuclear missile launch, or a test without a payload. Now this is a very real Russian missile test. This is more what it really looks like when it goes out into the water, as you see here from a ship. Then it leaves the water and goes straight up through the clouds, piercing the clouds, and in to near space, or the outer atmosphere. This is what happens to the fuel that's left behind on the water. You notice it's still burning. The fuel that's left behind on the water in the clouds, still hot, still burning. Normally it goes from that sea to there. But what if the missile launch didn't make it all the way across the continent? What if the missile launch went bad and fell to the earth sooner than it should have? Or came from this direction and fell to the earth sooner than it should have, if it should have gone over into this sea? Coming from the same area that they would have come from had they been coming from that part of the sea. We're facing east toward Kazakhstan in Russia. It's in the morning, 9:26 in the morning. There's the sun, and there are already 5 rocket trails in the sky. Now, when the Russians detected that this thing was not on the correct trajectory like all of these had been, that would have been when it was up in space before it had changed its trajectory to come back down to space. So before it was even here, they knew where this thing was, if it indeed was a missile. Their first recourse is surface-to-air defense, which they would have employed immediately. By the time it was here, more than likely it would have been employed. We're going to look at that. We just saw some fallout. It looked kind of like it was from this burning projectile itself. But if something had come apart from it, it would have trailed behind it, not gone forward from it. Let's look at that again. See? right here, some projectiles seem to be coming out from the area of this burning projectile. And there are little shiny things around here, things floating behind it that might also be some indications of what's going on as far as surface-to-air defense. A grand explosion, and it continues on its trajectory smaller. And let's take a look at what that looks like close up. Here on very close up we see a cylindrical projectile coming forward from the original blazing projectile. It has missed its mark, apparently. It's not flaming. It seems to be reflecting the light from the flame that's behind it, but there's no trail behind it. It cuts off right here, square at the end. It has passed by. It is not going the exact trajectory. It is off target. I would postulate that this is surface-to-air anti-aircraft weaponry that has missed its target at this point. At this point, it has still not exploded, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cylindrical projectiles surrounding it. Apparently at this point it still has not been hit. The glow has not changed. The trajectory has not changed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projectiles in its area. All 6 of them have missed at this point. Time is running out for the Russian officials who have sent this missile reeling. As we see in the next shot, the original cylindrical object that was coming toward this burning object has merged with the object. There's another cylindrical object flying parallel to it. It is becoming more vibrant, more alive with fire, more intense. When this merged with this and it became white hot, it kicked off part of it. There's a piece here that has come apart from it and is drizzling off on its own, and you can see the flame on it has started to subside. As we see, that first has merged right with it. There is another cylindrical object here, and this has been kicked off. There's actually 2 pieces that have been kicked off upwards as this careened into this, just clipping it and starting it to become more intense. Not only did it clip it, but it seems that it has gone further on in its course, which means it didn't explode, but it upset things, and the heat is becoming more intense here at this point. At this point, it has become very, very intense. It's about to be obliterated. But we see 3 more cylindrical objects flying parallel to this projectile. The trail for these 3 objects appears to begin right here for these 2 and right here for this one, which would indicate they originated with this fireball. But I want to draw your attention to something here that no one else seems to have noticed. As this fireball becomes more intense, right in front of it, possibly in the direction that Kazakhstan would be, there is an energy source, another light source. It seems to have its own corona-like area, putting off its own energy, and directly across from it are pieces of this fireball coming away from the fireball. We notice it's a different kind of energy than the fireball, but it's a little orangey in color and yellowy, and right behind the fireball is the yellow and the orange on top of it, the same kind of energy that is intensified from this energy source, from this light source, the same energy behind directly to its diagonal, and directly diagonal from it, pieces of this fireball are falling back away from it and upward, not backwards from it where the trail is, but upward from it, up in the sky, as if it's being forced up by energy from this area, from exactly this area. Having turned the corner, now directly over the light source, it seems the pressure is pressurizing it upward right above the light source. You might be interested to know this configuration is found on the Tesla howitzer. After the tremendous explosion, pieces of it are flying off in all directions. Numerous theories as to what this fireball was falling down on Russia in the Ural Mountains include the possibility that DA-14 bumped one of the satellites and threw it down to the Ural Mountains on its way through our satellites, between our satellites and us on a close flyby, or that it sent another meteor ahead of it, which both of those things are very possible. Zhirinovsky claimed that America had sent some sort of weapon over there, a missile or something, with perhaps an EMP on it because it shut down all of their cell phone traffic. We did not. That would end up in World War III. Why would we send anything to the Russians? Idiocy. That's absolute idiocy. Another theory was that it was something that was thrown down from DA-14. Entirely possible. But I find it very interesting that Russian officials also said that it was a meteor, that they shot it down with new surface-to-air missile anti-aircraft systems. That's what they said. They shot it down themselves. That's what they claimed. They claimed it was a meteor, and they shot it down. Then they claimed it was something from the U.S., and they shot it down. It's interesting that they're making all these claims that they know what it is and that they shot it down when it looked to me like the very skies were telling us they were doing missile drills that day. Why they would choose a day when DA-14 is flying by, I don't know, except possibly to use it as a cover. It looked to me like one of those missiles got away from them, and they had to shoot it down. But it appeared to me that this missile had more of a payload than a normal missile should have, because the explosion was excessive for it not to have any kind of payload on it. If a directed energy weapon was used against it, or other surface-to-air explosives were used against it, it should not have made that much of a concussion if it had no payload. It's possible it still had a lot of rocket fuel. I don't know. If that were the case, then I can understand why it made such a huge concussion, because there was so much rocket fuel. In my humble opinion, there was so much rocket fuel because it was a Russian missile. This is what air missile defense might look like. Very similar to what we saw riding close to whatever that was that looks like it probably was shot down. Here we see the Russians are testing multiple rockets. This one is going quite well. As we look downward, we see this one has gone awry. And if you notice, on the bottom, it's still yellow hot. It's still burning. Close to the top, it's still hot. It's still burning. And when it twists around and we see the lateral view, we notice that there are two rocket propulsion trails. Two chemical trails of rocket fuel that are expelled through two cylindrical rocket engines. There are some things that I want to show you about this projectile trail. Long after it has already left the sky, this trail is left over, and we see that there are two completely separate, revolving around themselves, two cylindrical smoke trails, or rocket trails, if you will. There is also fueled hot spots, still hot, as it stays up there in the sky because it's lighter than air, very similar to rocket fuel would. And there's hot spots that remain hot over this long period of time. It's gone out of the sky a long time ago. This is still there. This is where the explosion took place, the big, extremely intense explosion. The main body of the projectile seems to have been thrust upward, and then it came back down, turned left, and resumed its course. Now that looks pretty smart to me. I quite frankly, I don't see how anything that is inert without a command structure could do this. If it were to blow up and go upward, it would just continue to go upward and fall down. But this blew up, came back down, turned left, and resumed its course until it completely fell out of momentum. A prayer for those suffering in Russia right now, from Psalm 4. Answer them when they call to you, O my righteous God. Give them relief from their distress. Be merciful to them and hear their prayer. How long, O men, O kings of men and leaders of nations, will you turn God's glory into shame? How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Selah. Know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord will hear when they call to him. In your anger, do not sin. When you are on your beds, search your hearts and be silent. Selah. Offer right sacrifices and trust in the Lord. Many are asking, who can show us any good? Let the light of your face shine upon us, O Lord. Fill their hearts with greater joy than when their grain and new wine abound. Let them lie down and sleep in peace, for you alone, O Lord, make them dwell in safety. In Jesus' name, amen. This is Rev. Michelle Hopkins. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.